Thank you very much for being here. It's an opportunity to speak in a line of interesting speakers, not today, and I have the honor to be the first in a long line through the next 3 days on this conference. And this panel is around emerging trends. And first of all, I would like to emphasize, although hydrogen now talks in this context of emerging trends, maybe we want to point out that hydrogen actually maybe has passed the stage of being an emerging trend, obviously depending on the context and the size. Today I spontaneously replace Sebastian Koppelt, who is from the DWV and specifically from the High Mobility Consortium or Commission within DWV. He sends his greetings. He caught a cold and is unable to speak. So apologies for that. The high mobility context is, as I said, a commission within the DWV that tries to ignite that spark for hydrogen mobility along the complete value chain. So knowing that hydrogen mobility is obviously within the vehicle, but you also need the bigger context of green mobility and renewable energies. We at LBST are in the field for 40 years now, and it has been mentioned, the founder of LBST, Ludwig Bölkow, is basically the co-founder of Airbus and had the vision 40 years ago that hydrogen and renewable energies are required to transform the whole sector. So ever since, we are in the context of sustainable mobility, and at the center of our expertise is especially hydrogen along the complete value chain, so from production to the end applications. We have expertise from regulatory contexts over techno-economics all the way to strategy consulting or development, both for private sector stakeholders as well as public and science. For the DWV, and that is the reason why I stand here as a replacement of Sebastian Koppelt, we have conducted 2 studies. And parts of that are put into context today for you. One on the regulatory framework of zero-emission mobility in general, and especially focusing on the impacts of hydrogen heavy-duty transport to reach the climate targets and fulfill basically the ideas, the policy ideas for a transition to renewable, to a sustainable transport sector. And the other one is, or had been focusing on emissions beyond CO2, which is also a big argument, I think, for us all, even though maybe some of you or most of you maybe have a battery electric vehicle background. I think we can all agree that zero emission has advantages beyond the avoidance of CO2, mentioning noise or particles, etc. So I think it's very important to know that both of us are affected, basically. And with that, let's look at the German roads today. This is reality, and this means hydrogen mobility in general, and especially road mobility. I think we are aware of that remains an integral part of our transport mix over the next decades. And if we are frank, the mobility will rather increase on the road over the next decade than decrease. So we need a solution on the road that is emission-free. Now, looking at the truth of the past, as we say, and always giving a little bit of insight to the future. Despite significant advances in decreasing the specific emissions per vehicle over the past 25 years, basically, or ever, since the late 1990s, we do see an increase in absolute traffic. And this completely levels out the effects that we have seen through the specific emissions over the past. So the pressure is high despite advances that have been reached over the past years. And the transport sector, you know, those of you being from Germany know that there's a big emission reduction target for 2030 that aims at reducing to about minus 48% of CO2 emissions. And if we compare that aim of the transport sector to the total aim that Germany tries to reach compared to 1990, we see an ambition gap even in the transport sector. So the targets that are politically set are already, well, not that ambitious compared to other parts, saying someone is already reducing the targets preemptively. And if we look at the development of the transport sector emissions over the past years, and that's the actual data for Germany, you see that these yearly targets that have been set to reach this 48% should decrease step by step. And even though COVID had shown that decline for the first time reaching one of these targets, the emissions of the past years have shown that we have a rather increase of these emissions again. So the fear is that this trend rather goes on. And we are not speaking about the aim of net zero by 2045 or 2050, which needs even more ambition to reach it. So who is actually causing these emissions? If we look at the pie diagram, we see that a large part is coming from cars, actually, and commercial vehicles make about 1/3 of that, of the absolute emissions in Germany. Within that commercial vehicles, we see that especially semi-trailers of 40 tons make another third of the third, and together with the other big N3 type heavy-duty vehicles, it's about 2/3 of that part. These absolute emissions are also found in the specific emissions. Not surprisingly, a heavy-duty truck or a bus reaches a significant amount of CO2 emissions over its lifetime in a year, and is compared to diesel or gasoline cars much more. But, and this is the big and important but, knowing that this causes a lot of emissions also says here we have the highest and the longest lever. And if we compare the replacement of one semi-trailer to the replacement of cars on the street, we reach the equivalent of 50 cars, and one bus being replaced by a zero-emission vehicle is about 36 gasoline cars. And keeping that in mind, I think we can already feel how we can try to reach this ambitious target over the next years. Another number maybe for you, because the 15 million cars, I think you're all aware of that. That's a policy target by the German government. 15 million electric vehicles on the road by 2030. This is compared to heavy-duty trucks, basically only 450,000. And listening to our colleagues, this is, in principle, a number that is to be handled well. Now, how do we get there, or what do we need to reach this target? Let's simply translate the target for the heavy-duty sector now. So this is basically the development of heavy-duty vehicles over the past years in Germany. And we simply assume this remains on the same level. You can argue whether this is pessimistic, optimistic, or simply a simple assumption. But simply translating your minus 48 CO2 target in a very first approximation means we need over 200,000, or more specifically 230,000 heavy-duty trucks on the road in 2030. And you could call it the less ambitious goal to reach about a third of electric kilometers, traveled kilometers to be reached by 2030. We still need about 150,000 vehicles. Sorry, this is a mistake. We're not talking about cars, but heavy-duty trucks. So we have this corridor, I would call it, that we need to reach until 2030 in the heavy-duty truck zero-emission vehicles. And you can imagine we can only get 230,000 vehicles on the street if we ramp up. And the ramp up is extremely important and needs to start now. If we look at the new registrations over the past years, we reach a number of about 60,000 on average. So every year, 60,000 heavy-duty trucks get registered. If we make two assumptions on how this will develop, we can be ambitious with the development of new registrations, saying this trend, despite the COVID dip, moves on. We reach about 100,000 new registrations in 2030. We can also assume that the 60,000 more or less will remain the same. Now, to reach these 150,000 heavy-duty trucks, and assuming a, well, simple ramp-up curve until then, we would need 45,000 new registrations in the year 2030 to reach the 150,000 on the street, and 75,000 vehicles for the more ambitious target. And you already see 75,000 is more than this assumption. So basically, to reach our targets, we need even more new registrations on the road than we have at the moment. Again, emphasizing how difficult it is to reach that goal. And I want to bring up that number as well. So simply assuming an increasing number until 2030, already basically in 1 year, and I think I'm not shortening too much saying that 2025 is only 1 year away, we already need 10,000 heavy-duty trucks on the streets to even make it realistic to reach these numbers. And you know, every number that we miss here needs to be added here to reach the target. So to make it clear, this means we need the action now. These zero-emission vehicles need to be on the streets now. And 10,000 is quite a lot, and I think the current registrations in the heavy-duty sector are on the order of hundreds every year. So we are still quite a significant step away to get these 10,000 on the streets. And the big question is, how do we get there? On the one hand, we do see an increasing regulatory pressure, so the targets are set, and the legislators say, okay, you have to. The question is, yes, you have to, but, and there's parts in that do help, because, for example, you know, the emissions trading makes the fossil alternatives more expensive. But only saying you have to is not enough. I think we all agree in this room that there's significant barriers to get these vehicles on the road. Specific barriers are around the infrastructure, but also even more specific barriers are around type approval or dangerous good transports of hydrogen on the streets. And there are supportive measures, and we want to acknowledge them. They are there both for technical development, but also for commercializing. But the current measures, the support mechanism to actually get the vehicles on the road is not sufficient. And we suggest to continuously improve the regulatory framework. And we also believe it is possible. And this is maybe a very funny picture. It shows the horse with the car in the late 1940s. So a transformation is possible. That's what I want to say here. and maybe the horse to the car is not equivalent to the fossil car to the zero emission vehicles, but still it reminds us, I think the car drivers there didn't miss the horse dung on the street, right? The droppings, the smell, and I'm certain we won't miss the noise and the smell of our fossil alternatives. High Mobility is working to get to that new market design and is working in working groups along hydrogen production infrastructure for manufacturers and the users. The knowledge transfer and the communication and public relations and the impact or the guiding towards policymakers for the right regulations should lead to a new market design. And within these expert working groups, they have worked out several key actions. And this is now content I read out in the replacement of Sebastian Koppelt. But they have worked on actions, concrete actions. And I think, not surprisingly, and we are all in the same boat here again, renewables need to be expanded. Very, very important, not only for battery vehicles, but also for hydrogen mobility. The planning and approval, especially in the production side, is too slow in Germany. We need that market design that High Mobility is actually working on, and we need more electrolysis capacities. For the infrastructure, again, I think we need a market, and we all believe in the market in a way that kind of by igniting it, getting it towards a working market is, I think, the most important step. Again, the planning and approval steps. Then we need public hydrogen refueling stations. You know, the approval procedures are much more easy on private grounds at the moment. So it is very important that they're publicly accessible. And I think we need pipelines and availability in the broader field. How do you say it again? Flächenverfügbarkeit. I missed the English term, I'm sorry. And obviously, we need enough hydrogen in the system, so we need to import. On the manufacturer sides, we need an adaptation of the ADR. I already mentioned it. We need the serious approvals for the length changes. We need additional funding for road load and development of fuel cells with higher hydrogen quality tolerances to make the availability more easy, to have not that high quality hydrogen that you currently need for a fuel cell. And obviously, hydrogen could also be stored similar to a battery in a vehicle. On the user side, we have operational promotion of zero-emission vehicles, incentives. We should incentivize decentralized electrolysis. The target-oriented proposals on EU tolls should come as soon as possible. CO2 reductions should be set for cities, for the municipal level as well, keeping in mind the emissions as well that go beyond CO2, and they are already experiences on the municipal level there. Particles, etc., are being tackled on the municipal level, and, for example, service centers. Now, to finish this, and I'm looking at my colleague from BMW, we know these vehicles are on the street, and we know there's stakeholders active bringing the streets on the road. So our message today is we are all in the same boat trying to reach that zero emission target. The technologies are ready, also the hydrogen technologies. Let's get there together. I think it's very important to acknowledge technology and industry are ready for ramp up. Thank you.